when I do that, that means it's preview time. It's become a little bit of a tradition of mine to take a sip of this lovely afternoon coffee, which I probably shouldn't be doing, really, drinking coffee in the afternoon. But yeah, it's preview time on My Blue Heaven. And we've got a ripping contest which awaits us this Friday night against our arch rivals, the Collingwood Football Club, at the MCG. Where else would this game take place? I'm trying to predict the crowd for this one. Yeah, I mean, anything above 85,000 you would expect, potentially even more. The weather looks fine, 17 degrees, no wind, really no chance of rain at all. So it's a similar type day. I think it's going to be around about 15 degrees by the time the game starts. So it's similar type weather which we encountered against Geelong on the weekend on Saturday night. So just looking at this, guys, and it is a big Friday night game against Collingwood. And always, as I do in these previews these days, have a look at the odds and have a look at what the punters are saying, and they've got us favourites at $1.73 and Collingwood at $2.12. And as much as there are a lot of trolls out there from opposition supporters, I think that probably says that they're liking what they see from us. Opposition fans, they're liking, the fact that we can get on a run and we can score, and we do have some absolute weapons, and we do fight back, and so yeah, I think that when opposition supporters honestly think like that about you, I think that's a decent sign. Collingwood $2.12, and that's probably more to do with the fact that they're sitting, what are they sitting, 10th on the ladder, and we are sitting 6th. And that could drift out a little bit more, guys, now that we've just heard over the last couple of hours that Jordan De Goey, groin concerns for the Pies. Obviously, he'd been playing with that for the last couple of weeks, and it's got to a stage where they need to put him on ice. And it's a funny one, isn't it? Because this is a huge game, and they've rolled the dice with him by the looks of it, because they got off to such a bloody slow start to the season, Collingwood, and they needed to get some wins under their belt. And they've decided to rest him. How long he'll be out, I'm not quite sure. It doesn't concern us, but this Friday night, it certainly helps our chances, and no Tom Mitchell as well. So that's two. I mean, he was great in the grand final last year, Tom Mitchell. He was arguably one of the best players on the ground. He had a great game, and regardless of how well he started this season, inside mid, always is an accumulator, pretty much allows others to play in a particular way. So it's an important cog gone from that midfield. And I mean, no one can tell me that Jordan De Goey is not in the top 10 players in the competition when he's on song. He's an absolute jet, both on the inside and the outside, goal kicker. And he's matured. I think he's matured, and he makes things happen. It's a massive out. So and we got look. I'm not going to use if they're using that as an excuse. Well, good luck, because we've still got some key components out of this team as well, and I never will use that as an excuse. And Collingwood will be able to at least find some players from the VFL who can come in and potentially cover, not as well as those two boys, but yeah, I looked at their VFL from last week, guys, and I didn't watch their game, but they played Essendon in the VFL, got beaten in a close game, and Finn McRae had 31. Will they go back to the well with him? It's almost like they lost a bit of patience with Finn McRae. Probably hasn't come on as quick as they would have liked. Had some opportunities, but hasn't performed. Been a little bit scratchy at senior level. And Lockie O'Sullivan, the lad they got from Footscray VFL, who is who is he's a really good player, a really good player. He only had the 21 touches in the VFL last week, but there is some talk that he could debut for Collingwood against us. And what an exciting night that would be for him, who was overlooked in drafts and has done it the hard way to come in and play on a Friday night against Carlton at the MCG in front of potentially 90,000 people. Do they go like for like? Do they bring in two midfielders, McRae and O'Sullivan to replace a De Goey and Mitchell? Do they adjust their team? They probably will. I don't know what they will do, to be perfectly honest, but that's what I would be thinking, the obvious choices. But maybe similar to Geelong last week, they concede, they're not happy to concede the dominance in the midfield, particularly around the centre and the clearances, because I think we now have the upper hand, although Cox and Darcy Cameron will be, I think, a trickier opponents for both Pitnet and De Conning. I think Stanley was really down last week and we really bullied him. So it will be a little bit harder in those ruck contests, but you would think, given that we're going to get Cherub back if he's right to go, and potentially Cunningham as well, we've got some real depth through that midfield now. So the Collingwood concede. So look, it's probably, we'll try and do the best we can in there. But do they bring in a Markov who's been in the VFL, being replaced by Noble, and get some more speed behind the ball, which I think, and they really set up well behind defensively, and that could be an option for Collingwood. But look, I don't want to sit here and talk too much about Collingwood because they started the year slowly. We know that. And it's sort of like they're slowly getting their act together. Defensively, first and foremost, I think, we always know that they are very, very sort of, even though they're predictable, they're a little bit unpredictable forward of centre because they have so many threats that get under your guard. Like a Mychek, he just is so super consistent, and he just steps up, Brody Mychek, almost as that lone sort of tall forward. I know they throw Cox and Cameron down there, but Mychek does play such a sort of selfless and hardworking role for them. And then, Elliott as well, and then the smalls in Bobby Hill and Lockie Schultz. And even I think Lipinski's had a really good start to the season for the Pies as well. McCreary, he's the one that sort of worries me the most, because I think he's been okay this year, Bo McCreary. But anyway, they've just got options forward of centre that can trouble what I would consider at the moment for us a bit of a brittle defence. And they've started slowly, Collingwood, but they're gradually getting their game back together. But they come into this, it's a must win for them. And they've got some troops on the sidelines who are very important to them, which puts a bit of pressure on them. But you would not count them out to be able to lift and to be able to get the job done. They're just that type of club. And we just know it doesn't matter what time of game it is and what the margin is, that they will come, and they'll come quickly. They'll back themselves. They've got a lot of confidence, a lot of belief. So as much as a Carlton supporter, I don't sit here and say I like Collingwood. I do enjoy watching them play. I enjoyed I enjoy the style of play that they put out there for their fans, and I don't know. It feels like we're a little bit like them in that sense, or it feels like we're becoming a little bit like them. That like even last week against Geelong, we just came with a rush out of nowhere. Like we just came with a rush out of nowhere where that game was done and dusted. We just gave our fans some belief. Anyway, I'm going to park that there because we know, I think the thing over the last couple of weeks with Collingwood has been, I'm not going to call it resurrection, but they've really stiffened up in their back half. I think Moore's found some form. Quainer, I think Billy Frampton's doing a reasonable job on that big gorilla type forward, you'll probably go to Harry. And have they got the coverage though for all of those? So Darcy Moore doesn't necessarily love to play on someone, so maybe one of those boys can get off the chain. That could even be TDK as well. But anyway, us. It's all about us, I think. Well, it has to be about us, because if we're believing what the coach is saying, and I keep going, I'm going to go back to the press conference after our loss to Geelong. And I think that some of the words that came out of that press conference and the tone of what Michael Voss said is really important for me. Trying to understand exactly where we're at. And I'm sort of parking. I know last week in my preview before the Geelong game, I said I was becoming somewhat obsessed about this notion of finishing top 4 and potentially top 2. I'm actually parking that at the moment. I am thoroughly looking forward to getting there on Friday night and watching, not necessarily how we respond to the loss. I think I'm more interested in how we respond to the words and the tone of Michael Voss. And what I mean by that is he spoke a lot about our defensive actions, and I sound a bit wanky here, but our defensive profile. And I feel like this press conference and the words from Michael Voss can be a really good reference point for me and us as supporters, not only for the next 3 or 4 weeks with some tough opposition and some really quality opposition that we're going to face, but also potentially moving forward this year. It definitely, initially I thought it was a bake, but he didn't pinpoint any members of the team or any individuals, which coaches rarely do anyway. In fact, they never do, but he was fairly strong on his tone and messaging in regards to the collective, the whole team. And the thing that I probably got out of it the most was he looked down the barrel, okay, and he was particularly angry, and I can only imagine what he was like behind closed doors. But he just said, it's just too easy for them to score. And he was obviously talking to how easy it was for Geelong to score. Now, why would he want to say it in that particular moment if it wasn't a consistent thing across a course of either the year or the last 3 or 4 weeks? And there's no doubt he's talking about standards, and he mentioned it fell below those standards of defending tonight. Now, we could probably go right back to the Adelaide game, which I thought was just an absolute mess in regarding the way we want to defend. And I'm talking about defending the ground, not necessarily just our back 6 and 7, defending the ground. The first half against GWS was an absolute mess as well, the way we defended the ground. And then Geelong pretty much for the whole game. So this isn't something that's just come out of the blue. Coincidentally, it's probably been something that has risen its ugly head since we've got our mojo back in the middle of the ground. Now, I don't know if that's a coincidence, or our inability to find that balance is quite striking at the moment. And there's no way in the wide world that we will win a grand final with the way we are defending. We're going to have to, pardon the pun, buck some trends here, because we just know you've just got to be strong defensively. So I look at those words, and that's pretty much all I'm going to be watching this week, is our ability to defend the whole ground. And what the fuck are we doing when we haven't got the ball? And it was just, I don't know about you guys, but I've been to the last 3 games. So I went to the Adelaide game, GWS game, and Geelong game. And every time the ball exit our forward 50 from the opposition exits, I just go, we're in fucking trouble here. And every time the ball then comes inside our defensive 50, I've just got no confidence at all. It's almost like I've just closed my eyes and hope for the best. That's I reckon what Michael Voss is seeing at the moment with this group. I've got no doubt in my mind that this is an attitude thing. I really do. I think the beauty about it being out there now, and stats don't lie, but the stats don't lie in regards to how easy it was for them to score, okay, on the weekend against us. So the stats will back it up. However, a lot of supporters were saying if only we had executed, we would have won that game. And it was all about our execution that lost us the game. Now, that wasn't the case. It was how, one, efficient Geelong were, but how easy it was them to score. Teams they're going to score. Okay, Collingwood will score this weekend against us. It's just like, it's ludicrous to suggest that we're going to keep them to 30 or 40 points. That's not going to happen. But it's the ease, the ease of which Geelong were able to score, the ease of which Adelaide were able to score against us a couple of weeks ago, the ease of which GWS were able to score against us in the first half against them at Marvel Stadium a couple of weeks ago. That is the concern for me. I think the reason why Michael Voss put it out there and was so strong with it, I'm going to know that this is an attitude thing. I really do. And the collective mindset. Obviously, personnel. I'm not discounting personnel, and you will hopefully eventually get some better players back into that back half, whether it's Sard and McGovern, etc., etc. But this was too easy. So this doesn't. The way you defend the ground and set up is not an ability thing. It's not a personnel thing. It could be a lack of footy IQ. Could be too many dumb footballs, but I don't actually think that is the case. I think we have got ahead of ourselves a little bit in the regards to the way we play. And my concern a little bit, guys, with us is that we are going around in circles and we always end up back in the same spot. So we end up poor defensively and we try and fix that. Then we end up being poor in a different area of the ground, whether it's synergy going inside forward 50 or poor clearance. We just can never get the right balance. Now, you're never going to have the perfect balance. But right here, right now, we're either this strong in this area or really poor in that area. And right now, we're strong around the ball. Okay, and we do some terrific... And I've got no doubt that strength, if we continue that, but still be poor defensively this week against Collingwood, we may still win, okay? Because the power of our midfield and potentially the fact that Collingwood mightn't be as strong as Geelong are defensively, I'm not discounting the fact that they could be, we could still get over the line in this game. But if we do not tighten up defensively, we're going to give this fucking football club, Collingwood, so many looks because they do go and they do go quickly and they do have speed. If the thing is, if this doesn't improve, we've got to start to ask some questions. You know, you've got to ask the questions of everyone, including the coach, including this so-called newfound culture at the football club. So if he's put this on the table right now, this is an attitude thing. It's got to be an attitude thing. And I'll finish up by saying this, guys. I think we can win this game. I got no doubt we can win this game, even if we still can't get our defensive. But that will be a focus, but I still think we have enough power to win this game. I'll say this, though. If it continues with this ease of which the opposition can score, and it's a consistent thing. I'm not saying this will happen, but please, once again, don't misinterpret what I'm going to say here. But we go back to when David Teague was sacked as coach of this football club with a year left running on his contract, yeah? And Michael Voss ain't going anywhere. However, in the external review that our fucking club put out in an email to us supporters, okay, we were crying out to see what they'd come up with, the fact that they'd sacked David Teague, why. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't upset that David Teague left. This is not about that. But the email by Luke Sayers said that with an extensive review of the footy department, of the players, etc., there was a confusion and I mean confusion from a player point of view, associated with the game plan at times on field. The team has under-delivered in its ability to consistently defend. I will repeat, this is what was said in the email 3 years ago. There was confusion associated with the game plan at times on field. The team has under-delivered in its ability to consistently defend. Now, I'm not jumping the gun here, but what I'm saying is here, Michael Voss has put this on the table. He said it's just too easy for them to score. Now, he's not just referring to that one game against Geelong. The fact that he's mentioned it, okay, suggests that the way we're defending at the moment is putrid. All right? So you need to be able to defend. You just need to be able to defend. And right here, right now, this group, whether it's a collective attitude thing, which I seem to think it is, are just not willing to do it. Or in fact, do they know what they're fucking doing? So these questions for me, guys, are not only going to be answered this week against Collingwood, but they're going to be answered over the coming weeks. Speak soon.